We are officially past the halfway point of the high school football season. Some teams have already gotten that all-important fifth win, Mitch, but we got a lot of great matchups coming up, a lot to talk about, maybe some mid-season player of the year candidates to watch. Get those out there, start naming some names here.
Yes, it's certainly player of the year watch list season. But like you said, there's 4 weeks left. And while we do have some teams that are already qualified with their fifth win or eligible, there is a lot still to unfold in this season. A lot of conference titles still up for grabs. A lot of teams still trying to get their fifth win into the playoffs. So, yeah, we're halfway down, but boy, the second half is going to be a lot of fun.
Some of the best matchups of the year still waiting to come. Mitch, on View from the West podcast, we're fighting for clicks. We're fighting for wins. Let's get into it. Talking Illinois high school football.
If your goals are as high as you talk about, tonight's the night you go out and just take one more step.
It's a View from the West.
And it starts right now!
Welcome into View from the West podcast, the podcast covering Illinois high school football on the western side of the state of Illinois. I'm your host, Greg Armstrong, joined once again, as always, by Mitch Stormer. Mitch, I thought about it yesterday. I had some Notre Dame jokes lined up, some 10-man defense jokes, but we focus on the positives here. So I'm gonna let you off the hook. We're gonna move along.
I don't think you want to go down that road as a Northwestern fan and a Bears fan. So, which they, of course, extended their streak to 13 games in a row that have lost and given up 25 points. So, no, I'm glad that you didn't. I would have had plenty of ammo in the chamber for that one. But yeah, it was a real tough night for me on Saturday night.
Yeah, when we were texting back and forth doing a little podcast planning, and I believe the text you sent me was, I'm gonna set it down for tonight. I'm a little footballed out. And I kind of knew that was my cue that, the Notre Dame game is not sitting well with him. So we're gonna let him recharge a little bit. But hey, you had today to kind of sit down and dive into the numbers and see the players that we need to watch for player of the year. Are you re-energized? Are you ready to go here?
I took my frustrations out on a bunch of logs that I needed to split outside, and it kind of got me away from.
Where do you live? Like the backwoods here?
Yeah, it's Paul Bunyan style. So that got me away from football for a little bit. But now, as I sit here watching the Bengals and the Rams kick field goals to one another, I just can't get away from bad football. So looking forward to talking about this and going through what we've seen through the first 5 weeks and looking ahead here as we move closer and closer to the playoffs.
Plenty of good football to talk about here on the podcast. View from the West, of course, brought to you by our friends at Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They provide all the same sporting goods services that the big nationwide companies do, but with a faster turnaround and uniform pricing at a fraction of the cost you're probably used to. They offer the name brands such as Adidas, Under Armour, Nike, and they are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. Check them out on Facebook or breedlovesports.com or contact Cal Breedlove. Email him at calbreedlove@gmail.com for more information. Before we jump into the recaps and looking ahead to next week, how about we stop and give a shout out? Congratulations to Matt Schuckman, our friend of the podcast over at Muddy River Sports down in Quincy. He was honored by the IHSA as one of their Distinguished Media Service Awards. So congratulations to him. We also had Brian Roosh from our area up at WCCI Radio in Carroll County, also received the award. Congrats to both of them. They both do great work. We know, we've gotten to know Matt Schuckman pretty well here on the podcast, our friend down in Quincy. So congratulations to him.
Yeah, a lot of great coverage from both of those guys. And may I add, Greg, that our guy, Kevin Hieronymus, recently won an award. I believe it was for his softball coverage, I want to say. I don't want to mispronounce the award that he got or what it was for, but
okay.
I know we hadn't talked about that yet. But yeah, our guy, Kevin, also won an award. So we really enjoyed their coverage of local sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Mitch, we are lucky to be surrounded by very talented people. I don't know what we are, but we're surrounded by talented people, which is great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and Matt Randazzo's there too. Yep.
Oh, man. Here we go. All right. Let's take a look back at week number 5 that was in the Western Big Six. Mitch, crazy to think that we've hit that halfway point. Some teams have reached that 5 wins, so they're now playoff eligible. They're going to be going to the postseason. One of those teams, a team that we kind of assumed would be, well, we definitely assumed they'd be headed to the playoffs. We also pretty much thought they'd be 5-0, and here they are. The Quincy Blue Devils get the big win, 63-27 over United Township. Speaking of Muddy River Sports, David Adam, their sports reporter, was on the scene. We read up a little bit from him about the game and how this one played out. Braden Little continues to impress. He had more passing yards tonight alone than any quarterback in the Western Big Six has had through 4 games.
Yep.
So that's incredible. He had 292 yards in the first half, finished with 352 yards and 6 touchdowns. Tykel Hammers, Aiden Byquist, each over 100 yards receiving. Jarius Rice, 121 yards rushing. Mitch, this offensive output here is impressive week after week. 555 yards of total offense. What more can you say about this group? They are what we expected.
Yeah, not too much really to be added to that. This is what they've been doing week in and week out. I think this might have been their highest point total all year. But yeah, this is exactly what we kind of anticipated Quincy to do this year. If you listen to the preview, all 6, I think, people that were on the pod that night all predicted Quincy would be the Western Big Six champion this year, just because we knew what talent they had. And it's not even just what they have, it's that they're still not seniors yet either, a lot of them. So this is a Quincy team that's really, I think, going to go on a run. But yeah, this is a great night for them offensively. And for UT too, Matthew Kelly had a really great night. The score had great highlights of him and Randall. Once again, couple long connections for the two of them. They've been doing that more and more recently. So, it's tough to gauge when you play a team like Quincy, but I still think UT has been playing really well as of late. Even though the wins aren't showing up, they're still playing really well. But again, what more can you say about Quincy as they continue here down this path? It's all leading up to, I think, a week 8 matchup with Geneseo.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. Speaking of Geneseo, they got the win 43-3 over Galesburg. Jaron Neal, 3 touchdowns on the night. He could be a player to watch as a possible player of the year candidate. We'll get to our players to watch here in a minute. Moving down the way, the big rivalry game, Moline and Rock Island. Moline gets the win 28-10 over their rival. Thanks to our friends at QC Sportsnet for the write-up on this one. You can find their game recaps at qcsportsnet.com. The Maroons were without running back Adrian Cooper, but man, they really didn't miss a beat in this one. Pablo Perez stepped in, 20 carries, 172 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. Really good effort, though, from Rock Island. Mitch, they were in this game for a long time. They hung around in this one. This was definitely not a blowout that maybe some thought it might be just based on records going in and what we thought of Moline. Rock Island hung around in this one. Jonas Cortez nailed a 23-yard field goal to put the Rocks within 14-10. That was in the third quarter, but Moline kept having answers. That's the thing, is Rock Island kept it close. Moline kept responding. They had a big play, 50-yard touchdown pass from Elijah Taylor to Xander Ely. Ely continues to impress me. That made it 21-10 after recovering a Rock Island fumble. The Maroons, not the big play, not the explosive play, but this time they really grind it down, really wear down that Rock Island defense. 63 yards in 8 plays early into the fourth quarter. They cap it off with a 4-yard touchdown by Corbin Schnell. He gets the touchdown, nearly doubles his previous season rushing total with 155 yards and 17 carries. So great effort there. That next man up mentality, that's what the really good programs have established. You saw that in Moline in this win over Rock Island.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about this too, that the past 2 years, Moline has really taken Rocky to the woodshed. I mean, what it is the past couple of years, but we also said that when these two teams get together, for as long standing as this rivalry has been, you still have to throw out the records when they get together. So We know what Rocky has struggled with this year. We know that Moline isn't quite up to the start that they maybe expected or want to be. But this was a good win for Moline as they continue to make that final push, to get to 5 wins. They're sitting at 2-3 now. They're coming up to a forfeit here, which will give them another win. Maybe not a lot of playoff points, but will get them at least to 3 wins. And yeah, at the end of the day, they win a big rivalry game. I think that was on the road. I think that was at Rock Island, right?
No, I believe it was I think Moline was at home.
Okay. Either way, anytime you can win a rivalry game, that's huge. But as you mentioned too, it was a great effort from Rocky. We've seen some performances week after week that they're showing signs of getting better. Gartar's been really good, really all season. He had 125 yards and a touchdown in this one. So, again, for our Rocky fans out there, just hang tight with Coach Fritz. I know you're going through it this year, but you see signs, and you can be, you can see the positives moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. Well, one more game to cover in the Western Big Six non-conference game. In Princeton gets the 28-6 win over Sterling. Mitch, this was a game we talked a lot about in the Instant Reacts podcast on Friday night. I encourage everyone to go out, listen to the Instant Reacts. If we don't, do the deep dive on the game, how they played out last week, go back, listen to the Instant Reacts. We went long, and that was maybe our longest Instant Reacts we've ever done. So it was a lot of fun, but we got to a lot of what happened on Friday night. You can listen to it there. In this one, it's Princeton getting the win. Casey Etheridge with 3 touchdowns. Noah Laporte with a 40-yard pick 6 late in the 4th quarter to kind of seal the win. And Mitch, how about this? The Three Rivers is now 2-0 against the Western Big Six this season.
Just like everybody thought.
Yeah. I don't know about that, but man, it's wild. I think we still have at least one more Three Rivers and Western Big Six game. That's Mendota and Geneseo.
Yep.
So
and that's coming up week 7 or 8. I think that's week 7. Because again, I think I could get it wrong. When Geneseo and Quincy plays either week 7 or week 8.
Yep.
And Geneseo plays Mendota the other week. So yeah.
Okay. Based on records, that game maybe isn't as appealing as it was at the start of the season. Yep. But you never know. We'll see how that one plays out. Taking a look at the updated standings in the Western Big Six, you got Geneseo and Quincy both sitting undefeated, 5-0 and 3-0 in conference play. Sterling's 2-0 in conference play, but they're sitting at 2-3 overall. You also have Moline at 2-3 overall. They're 1-2 in conference play. And then down the way, Galesburg has a win in conference. UT has a win in conference. Galesburg, Rock Island, and UT are winless in conference play. So looking at the matchups here in week 6, United Township goes on the road to Rock Island. Galesburg is at Quincy. Geneseo takes on Sterling, and Moline will take the forfeit win, which would have been the Alleman game. So, I think the biggest matchup you have here is probably Geneseo and Sterling. You have Sterling trying to play spoiler. They've had the upper hand in this rivalry for several years now. Yeah. Geneseo looks really good. They look primed. This is, their year to make some noise. I think that's the game that kind of stands out to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at UT and Rock Island. Two teams who have struggled, but someone's going to come away with a win. And as I said before, I really like the way that Matthew Kelly and Corey Randall have been playing as of late. But Gartar with Rock Island is as explosive as an athlete in the Western Big Six as it comes. So there'll be a lot of offense, I think, in that matchup. But yeah, like you said, Geneseo and Sterling, certainly a lot of intrigue there. Sterling's reeling a little bit. Princeton really kind of just ran it right down their throat on Friday night. And in Geneseo, the way that they've been playing with AJ Weller and Jared Neal and all of their offensive players, they're really good on defense. But yeah, again, we're there's still some games here down the way because this conference isn't decided yet. Quincy and Geneseo, I think, is still going to be the deciding game in there. So for those two teams especially, can you win the games you're supposed to? Can you continue doing the little things right? Because you have no room for mistakes when that game comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, Mitch, should we talk about some, mid-season player of the year candidates here? Some players to watch down the way that we think could be our award winners for player of the year in the conference play. Give us some names and some numbers here, Mitch. You were crunching the numbers all day today, so
yeah. Let's start with the top two teams we were just talking about, right? Starting Quincy, and right off the bat, they've got a lot of guys that we could talk about, right? All of their receivers, guys on defense, guys on the line, they've all been playing really, really well. Narrowed it down to Braden Little. I think that goes without saying. He's almost at 1,500 yards, passing on the season. 18 touchdowns. If you remember, Greg, I predicted he would go over 3,030. So he's over halfway on the touchdowns, almost halfway at the yards. So still tracking that I could be right on that. But the guy either behind him, beside him, however they line up, Jarius Rice, 653 yards, 13 touchdowns on the ground. So again, this is a team that can score a lot of different ways. It seems like if maybe one of these guys isn't having the best, statistical night, the other guy is. So they can just hit you in so many ways. But the receivers that we talked about, Hammers, Byquist, all of them, they could be on this list as well. But we'll narrow it to Little and Rice for Quincy for the purposes of the midseason watch.
Yep. Moving down the way here, you also have the names you'd expect from Geneseo, right? I think AJ Weller's in the mix for a potential player of the year. Jaron Neal, potential player of the year. But a couple names here that maybe aren't tops, because of, where they're sitting in the standings. There's a few more names in here I think that could be.
Yeah, I think so too. Guys that have been playing really well the past couple of weeks and will look to continue doing that. Xander Ely, a guy you just talked about, who's been playing really, really well for Moline. Definitely their best receiver, their biggest downfield threat. For UT, I really like what I've been seeing with Matthew Kelly and Corey Randall. But again, you see the highlights, you see the explosive plays that those two are both capable of making. I think it's going to win them one, maybe two more games this season. And even for Sterling, Joe Holcomb's really been playing really well at the quarterback position. So yeah, this conference is full of talent. We see it every year. So it's always hard to kind of narrow it down to only a few names, but it's a wide open race, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. It's fun. It's going to be fun to watch down the way. Some players putting up some big numbers, and some of these players, if they're putting up big numbers, they could come away with some big wins that mean a lot to their teams down the way. So we'll see how it all plays out. Should we move in to the Three Rivers, Mitch?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, we already talked about maybe the game that kind of caught everyone's attention. That was Princeton getting the win over Sterling. But how about Kewanee? They get the win 41-0 over Hall. So they continued their season perfect. They're now sitting at 5-0. They're playoff bound again. Mm-hmm. And next week, they got Princeton on the road. They're headed to Princeton. A couple years ago, they had at the time what I would consider an upset win. And that was part of a season that ended up being very special for the Boilermakers, making the second round of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And man, heading into this one, they're the undefeated team going up against Princeton. Can they make some noise in this one again? Last year didn't go their way, but they seem to have kind of rebuilt now. They're back. They're kind of at that high level again.
Does it still seem like it could be that they're the underdog?
In a weird way, yeah, I can understand that. In a weird way, it kind of does.
It's on the road.
Yep. And I think that's a big factor. That's a big part of that, right?
You're still playing the 5-time defending conference champion.
Yeah.
A team that,
and Kewanee shared it with them, not last year, the year before. But yes.
Their only blemish is a loss at a last second field goal, not taking away what Morrison did that night, but that's their only blemish. Yep. And since then, and even the game before then, when they beat Monmouth Roseville 40-0, they've played really, really well. So it feels like that to me a little bit. I can't wait to watch this game because I think it will be another classic Kewanee Princeton matchup. But I was thinking about that earlier, that even though Kewanee is the undefeated one, it still feels, and we might have talked about this too on the Instant Reacts, but it still feels a little bit to me like they're the underdog in this one.
And I mean, for as explosive as Kiwani is on offense, I do think when you look at what Princeton just did against Sterling, that's an impressive output, right? You hold Sterling, a Western Big Six team, to 6 points. So that's an impressive bounce back. Maybe not bounce back, but that's an impressive statement win heading into this one. So I think that we know that Kiwani can score points, but man, Princeton's defense is tough, and Princeton can score a little bit. But here's the thing: we just talked last week on the podcast about how many shutouts Kiwani's had. So what is it now? Is it 3? We talked about on the Instant Reacts, 3 in 5 weeks. They have 3 shutouts, I believe.
I'm
putting myself
3 in 5 weeks. 3 of the last 4 weeks they've done it. Now let me hit you with this. Okay. I think Princeton's played better teams.
Yep.
They've played better defenses, especially. They've played Sterling, they've played Newman, and they've played Morrison.
Yep.
Kiwani, and again, the Boilermakers are going to come after me. I get it. I understand. I'm just sharing the facts, right?
Yep.
They have 1 win over a team with a winning record, and it's Bureau Valley. And 2 of those shutouts were against teams that don't have any wins. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just the facts. It's just the facts.
I will say,
I think that's kind of what factors into them being the underdog. Have they really played their toughest game yet? I don't think so. But I don't think Princeton can say that. I think that they have really had hard games so far.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I will say, seeing Kiwani in person, they were really strong defensively, and they're explosive. I think regardless of opponent, you can see a team that has a lot of varsity experience and that is really, just an all-around smart, good football team. Either way, man, that's a great rivalry football game. It's the best trophy. We already talked about that in the Instant Reacts. Am I going there, Mitch? I'm so torn. We'll talk about it at the end of the show. There's so many good games this week. I don't know where to go.
Our friends at Royal Williamsfield are not going to be happy if you don't go down there for that undefeated LLC matchup.
I know. I love me some games at Bill Adams Field. So I want to go there. But man, the Kiwani Princeton rivalry, Mitch, I love that one. So
I get it.
We'll talk about it at the end. We'll figure out something. But
yeah,
let's keep moving down the way here. Bureau Valley gets the win 35-14 over Mendota. Elijah Endress rushed for 249 yards, 5 touchdowns on his way to the victory. Brock Shane was 5 for 5 on extra point kicks. Cameron Lemons, a name we've talked about a couple times this year, he also rushed for just over 100 yards. And Brady Hartz added 63 yards rushing. Well, Mitch, we got to start with Endress's numbers. 249 and 5 touchdowns. That's an effort that could be helmet worthy.
Yeah. Listen, I like Bureau Valley's helmets, but I think we could maybe send a mini helmet their way, and they would appreciate that as well.
I think that this performance, it's earned the Matthewson's Mini Helmets Player of the Week. So congratulations to Elijah Endress for that performance. You got a mini helmet coming your way, customized from View from the West. Matthewson's Mini Helmets offers totally custom mini helmets and decals for your school. You can find them on Facebook or on Twitter. That brings Bureau Valley to 3-2 on the year. So they're definitely in the mix for a playoff spot. They're fighting fighting for it here.
Yeah, I think that probably factored into the decision, right? Because Bureau Valley is in a must-win mode right now, and they certainly have to play spoilers somewhere in the next 4 weeks, going up against Newman, Princeton, Aurora Central Catholic, and Morrison. So they've got to find 2 wins in there somewhere if they want to get into the playoffs this year. So they'll have to pull off the upset. But this was a good start. Shout out to Coach Bissell for not calling a single pass in this game. So we always like that. We like when that happens. So yeah, Endress, when his number's called, he made the most of it. So good on him.
Yeah, awesome job. Great performance. And Mitch, speaking of Coach Pistol, we got to say congratulations to Coach and his wife, Lindsay. They're expecting their first child this spring. And did you see the gender reveal on the practice field?
Yeah, I love that. Love getting the team involved in something like that.
Yeah, so for those who haven't seen it, they posted it on Twitter. It was the team got involved and they had a football kind of doctored up, or I guess kind of a plastic football or something. And, they did a little end around, and I think it was like a lineman or somebody that did like a punt. And when he kicked it, it revealed that it was the boy, the baby blue powder going in the air. So it's a baby boy. So congratulations to them. That was awesome. Really cool moment, really cool kind of team bonding there. So,
yep.
All right, well, moving our way down, Mitch, we talked about Princeton getting the win 28-6. Newman gets the win 20-7 over Erie Prophetstown. Tied 0-0 at halftime. Evan Bushman threw 2 touchdown passes for Newman. That leads the Comets to victory here. Mitch, it doesn't really surprise me anymore that these wins from Newman, they're not going to be flashy. They're not going to be, the big time numbers. But man, they grind it out. They find a way to get the job done. They did it again here.
Yep, they just continue to get these wins, and that's, again, it's going to be a huge quality for them moving forward. I think I said on the Instant Reacts, looking kind of crystal balling, looking ahead, they're probably going to be sitting at 7-2 would be my prediction going into the 1A playoffs, where they'll have a pretty good seed. But it's going to be that defense that's really going to be an asset come playoff time. You've seen it just week in and week out that they're so tough on that end of the ball. So yeah, racking up the wins. They got Bureau Valley coming into town this week. Could be a chance for them to become eligible for probably the 400th time, if I had to guess, in Newman's history. I would assume it's around there.
That sounds like a salty Morrison alum if I've ever heard it.
No, not at all. I'm proud of what Coach LeMay's doing out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's, again, a team that's working through it on the offensive side of the ball. But when you're doing that, you got to rely on your defense, and they've really done a good job of doing that this year.
Yep. Well, other results from the Three Rivers. Morrison got the win 41-12 over Monmouth Roseville. Mitch, we'll go through some of the season totals so far when we talk about our, players to watch or our potential, player of the year candidates. Morrison has plenty of them.
Yeah.
They come away with the big win here. Texting with Jeremy Adolphson, we talked about it on the Instant Reacts podcast. He was really impressed with what he saw here. Obviously, in watching film, he knew that they would be fast. He'd seen the highlights of that, but he pointed out he thought they were more physical than he expected. And he said that that's kind of the difference in what, a fast team is one thing, but if you're fast and you're physical and you're able to, get those blocks and really establish yourself in the line, that can go a long way. And he was impressed that way. But Mitch, what we really want to talk about in this one, let's talk about the punt that looks like a field goal, or the field goal that acted like a punt.
Yeah.
However you want to phrase it here. Let's get into this. You called it out. I had not seen it until you sent out the tweet. So what are we looking at here?
Yeah, so I'm here watching this game, and Monmouth gets into a punt formation, and I think they're either by midfield or on the wrong side of it. And they come out lined up like a field goal. Like, what is the story with this? And they kick it off, and I do not remember if it bounced or if, I think it was Deshaun McQueen picked it up, and he actually ran it back for a touchdown.
Yes,
but it got called back. But I'm thinking to myself, watching this thing, it's like, all right, well, if it dropped, why didn't the ball go back to where the line of scrimmage is?
Yep.
Or if you're on punt return, like, why would you even try to return it? So that's where my confusion, when I sent out a message about, someone explained this to me, and I think it was on Saturday that we finally got some answers on this.
Yeah, so we did get a little clarification. I texted Jeremy Adolphson, head coach at Monmouth Roseville, and he explained a little bit, but then we also heard from Logan from Brink Sportswear, one of our sponsors. He pointed out that the NFHS, the National Football High School rules, treat all scrimmage kicks the same as a punt. So the field goal is basically in high school the same as a punt. If the ball breaks the goal line, it's a touchback. If the ball doesn't get returned by the receiving team, then that team takes possession wherever the ball comes to rest. But they can also return it. It ends up, being operating the similar as a punt. we also got confirmation that was verified by Aaron Fry, a friend of the podcast. He is an IHSA official, so he was all over it, helping us out there. But, Coach Adolphson basically just pointed out that, in the offseason or in, summer workouts, they hadn't had much success finding a punter or someone that could consistently help their field position in punting. So they'd kind of joked around about, could they do that? And, would it work? And he just said that it only works in high school, because in college and the pros, it's not, like you just referenced, that it's going to go back to where the kick missed, where the field goal was quote unquote missed. Well, it doesn't operate like that in high school. So it's kind of a loophole in the rule, I guess. But he said that they always try to kick between the numbers and out of bounds. And he said, when you do that, it makes it a little tougher of an angle to block it. So it's not as easy to get blocked as some normal field goals. And he just said they've been able to, successfully get it farther downfield on a quote unquote field goal kick rather than a punt. So that's what they did. So it's fascinating that I've never seen anyone else do it. So
no, I again, certainly credit to Coach Adolphson for knowing the rule for one and finding something that works for them.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that I enjoy that rule. That's just too far-fetched for my liking. So
he said, unless the rule changes, he doesn't think he'll ever punt again.
Sure. Why would you? Yeah. Go for it. But yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it a bit.
Well, if you were a football coach and you needed to get yardage on a kick, you'd probably like it just fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rockridge gets the win over rival Orion 54-20. It's all the names we expect, Mitch. Schweigen, Zarlatanis, Fryermuth, Wheatley. Ryan Lower also blocked a punt and returned it for a touchdown. He's a kid I was impressed with on defense last year. He made a play at a game I was at, I believe, against Newman. So that's a kid I've always kind of been watching for on the defensive side of the ball. So he gets the job done there. You were kind of following along with this one. Rockridge kind of jumped up on this one early and never really looked back.
Yeah. I mean, it just seemed like, I think it was 42-14 at half or something like that. So, we've seen Rockridge be able to pull off halves of football like this. They did it in week 2 against Colfax. It's a really talented Rockridge team. We've said it before that I thought that they would either go 8-1 or they'd go undefeated, and they're certainly playing that way. That they could finish 8-1. Their biggest contest could be a game of the year, could decide the division, is week 8, I think, against Morrison. So that's still one of the marquee games left in the track. But this is a Rockridge team that's firing on all cylinders. They're definitely doing it on Friday.
Yeah, we mentioned some of the names. Schweigen had 98 yards and a touchdown. He also had 10 carries for 127 yards. That's what's been kind of the fun thing to watch, is that he's really taken off as an explosive runner out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we knew that they were going to look a little different on offense this year. They lost some players to graduation last year, some really good players to graduation last year. And we knew that they had some players coming back, but then we started hearing, hey, there's this freshman quarterback that's actually going to be taking the reins, and it's always a risk. And after that week 1 game, it seemed like Schweigen has settled down and they've done nothing but win since. So yeah, really looking forward to what they can do the rest of the way out. And this team is certainly structured in a way that they'll have that sustained success moving forward.
They also get consistent performances from Zarlatanis. Alex Zarlatanis, 13 carries, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. It just seems like every week he's kind of the workhorse, right? He's getting yardage for him, every week. We're always calling his name out. On the Orion side of things, Cale Filler, he puts up numbers, 13 for 25, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. Owen Voorhees had 6 receptions, was his favorite target there, was Filler's favorite target, 6 receptions, 113 yards and a touchdown. So thank you to Ty Taylor from WRMJ. He passed along these numbers for us, but, good effort by Orion, but just a fast start from Rockridge that, they really couldn't overcome. So moving down the way, Sherrard gets the 49-16 win over Riverdale. Noah Fender had 2 touchdowns, 2 or 3 touchdowns. I had saw 2 somewhere, and then I saw 3.
I think it was 3.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to shortchange Noah, but yeah.
No.
Okay. And Holland Anderson, 5 for 5, 152 yards, 3 touchdowns. Sam Crownover, 2 receptions, 60 yards, and a touchdown as well. So congratulations to Sherrard on the win. But Mitch, the really cool story was Riverdale and their kicker, Aiden Senzenbaugh. Tell us about this. It was great.
Yeah. So Stockpile gave us this little nugget on Friday that it was homecoming for Riverdale. They played a soccer game, a boys soccer game prior to this.
Yep.
And Aiden Senzenbaugh is, I think he said, right, the school's all-time leader in goals.
Could be.
I think it was that he's Riverdale's all-time leading scorer. He scored 2 goals in a win over Orion in soccer, and then changed his outfit, changed his jersey, put on the pads, and went out and set a new school record with a 47-yard field goal during this contest. So talk about a guy who can kick. Why not get your all-time leading soccer scorer and put some shoulder pads and a helmet on him? So yeah, it was cool to see a cool little stat line there.
Yep. Awesome moment for the Riverdale Rams. It's, the wins haven't been coming, but this is a really cool moment, just something to spotlight, something to celebrate for Riverdale. So
yep.
Cool. Good job there. Congratulations to Aiden on that, on a great night. And also congratulations to Sherrard. They get the win. Much needed victory for them, for this Tigers program, where does that leave them now? 3 wins, Mitch? 2 wins?
Sherrard is sitting at 2 wins now.
Yep.
They've got to go to Morrison this weekend. Could they play spoiler? Absolutely, they could. Tough way. So if, let's say that they don't, and they're sitting at 2 and 4 with 3 weeks left, you've got Orion, Erie, Provincetown, and Monmouth Roseville. So there is still a path there for Sherrard. The way that Holland Anderson, Carter Brown, the way that those guys have been playing, even back to the Rock Ridge game when they lost 2 weeks ago. You're talking about 3 straight games that Sherrard has really, really played well. So this team is capable of doing it, no question about it. So yeah, there is a way. And again, we'll see what they can do against Morrison this week.
Well, let's get right into it here. You got Morrison taking on Sherrard, Monmouth Roseville going on the road to Rock Ridge. I believe that game's on Saturday. You have Erie Prophetstown at Orion. On the other side of the division, on the other side of the conference, in the other division, you have Kewanee at Princeton, which we talked about, Bureau Valley at Sterling Newman, Mendota and Riverdale, and Hall versus IVC in a non-conference game. So, yeah, Mitch, you talked about that Morrison-Sherrard game. If you remember last year, it was Sherrard getting their only win of the year.
Yeah.
I believe it was it at Morrison? And it was a last second.
Well, I thought it was, but this game is also at Morrison, so that doesn't make any sense. But I'm pretty sure you're right that last year was also there.
I thought I remember seeing the video. Either way, it was a game that came down to the very end. Sherrard got the win in that one. It was a huge win for them. It was their only win of the season. But again, a team that we saw, flashes of talent that we thought they might do something this year. This would be a huge, obviously, can't overstate it. This would be a huge win for them, But this Morrison team, man, they're firing on all cylinders. So it's, it's tough. You'll have to go on the road and knock off a really good football team.
Yeah, and still a test for Morrison too, just to continue to take care of business, and if they can play well against a team with some momentum. Looking elsewhere, obviously we talked about Kewanee Princeton. That's probably the game out of any game that we cover, out of any conference that we cover that I'll watch. Certainly, you know how I like Tiger Central Live, so I'll be tuned in.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot on the line with BV and Newman. There's a lot on the line with EP and Orion. Even the Monmouth Roseville going to Rock Ridge. Monmouth Roseville sitting at 3-2 now. They've got some work to do to get into the playoffs. I think they can do it. I don't know that they can do it this week going to Rock Ridge, but it'll be a good test for them. So yeah, there's a lot of intrigue in this conference, but certainly I think the Mississippi division will be decided on Friday night, Kewanee and Princeton.
Yeah, it should be. That's kind of the way things are shaping up there, with Kewanee sitting at 5-0, and you have Princeton right behind them at 4-1. But when you're looking at playoff eligibility, like you mentioned, Bureau Valley's got to go on the road to Sterling Newman. Can this Bureau Valley offense figure out a way to make a little bit of progress against a tough Newman defense. That would,
mm-hmm.
Could they come away with the upset? That would be a big one. That's an intriguing matchup to watch for sure.
Yep, I agree with you. So, like I said, there's a lot of games that are meaningful here in the track this week, and as we move forward, I think we'll see more and more of that.
Yep. All right, well, let's talk some midseason players to watch. Who's our potential player of the year candidates, Mitch, from the Mississippi side of things?
Yeah, some names that we call out quite a bit, right? Starting in the undefeated Kewanee Boilermakers offense with Brady Clark. I should say not just offense, because he's pretty good all around, but 336 yards rushing with 5 scores. Rushing, he's got 638 yards passing with 8 touchdowns. So Clark, Alex Duarte, these 2 guys have been really putting up a lot of points for the Boilermakers this year, and a big reason why that they are undefeated. But we've been talking about Brady Clark for years now. He's having a really good season. A lot of fun to watch him play.
Well, looking at Kewanee's opponent this week in Princeton, the name that's really burst onto the scene is Casey Etheridge. As a sophomore, he was our player of the week winner in week 1. And it was honestly a name that we had not really been all that familiar with. And we certainly are familiar with him now.
Yeah, so he burst on the scene, 234 yards and 4 scores there in that very first game against Monmouth Roseville. On the season, he's nearing 1,000 yards rushing. He's certainly over 10 touchdowns. So, yeah, he's their weapon. A good compliment to Noah Laporte, to William Lott, to Ace Christensen, but he's kind of had the numbers and the performances week in and week out. So, yeah, he's an exciting back to watch. So watching Clark and Etheridge this week is going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of good running backs, you got to talk about our player of the week from this week, from Bureau Valley, Elijah Endress. 529 yards rushing so far, 10 touchdowns on the season. Also on the defensive side of the ball, 4.5 sacks. So he's really doing the job on both sides of the ball. But I think we talk a lot, Mitch, obviously player of the year type of candidates come from the offensive side of the ball. Yeah. But when it comes to Sterling Newman, you got to go defense. You got to talk about somebody on the defensive side of the ball. Who you got, Mitch?
Yeah, there's a lot of potential here. I think I texted Coach LeMay today about it, and the one thing that he told me that I hadn't, I guess, calculated yet, that the Newman defense has forced 16 turnovers so far this year. If you remember, they forced 4, at least 4. I know it was at least 4 fumbles. I can't remember if they got an interception or not against Princeton a couple weeks ago. Certainly had a few against Rock Island. So, guys like, Dan Kelly, Isaiah Williams, Evan Bushman. Newman's got a lot of key players who may not have the stats, right, of anyone else. Certainly not on offense. But that doesn't mean that they are not players that are capable of winning. Certainly Newman is sitting at 4-1 and with a win over a 6-8 team. So, yeah, I think we leave Newman as kind of an open slot for someone to kind of move into, but they've got a lot of guys on that defensive side of the ball who are part of a unit that's winning them games.
Yep. Well, let's move into the Rock side of things. And there are plenty, it seems like, candidates from the Morrison Mustangs to be a potential player of the year candidate. Who are you going to single out? If you got to name one, I'll put you on the spot.
Well, it's like you said, that they're by committee. They do so many things so well. Colton Bielema taking the reins at quarterback has played well. You've got Anderson. You've got Newman. You've got Strading. You've got McQueen. Yeah, again, like you said, you got so many. I like Brady Anderson. He's got 428 yards rushing this year. He's got 9 touchdowns. Just the type of kid that if they give it to him on a sweep and he's got any sort of window, he is gone. You will not catch him whatsoever. So I'll stick with him here as kind of the watch list player, but any of those Morrison players can really sneak up here as we move closer to the end of the year. But just, again, when Brady Anderson gets the ball, you need to keep your eyes open, because that play could be over pretty quickly. He could be in the rear view.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think seeing them this season, I also think like a similar player to that description is McQueen, right? When McQueen gets the ball on a special teams play, or if he gets the ball in space as a wide receiver, he's also a kid to watch, don't take your eyes off him. But Mitch, you talked about Newman's defense. How about if we're going to talk, defensive side of the ball and maybe total impact, you also have Strating, Sauce Strating doing the job on offense. He's got 472 yards unofficially. I think, I'm not sure exactly what Vandermeide sent, but this is another source we got some stats from. So if he's got, over 450 yards, but also on defense, he's really been a force on the defensive side of the ball. So that's, Strating's a name to watch for. And Newman coming in and throwing one pass that probably helped them win. It did help them win the game against Princeton. So, that alone gets you on this list, I think. So,
right. Yeah. So a lot of players there, and really just kind of like you said, when we're talking about Newman, that defensive players don't get a ton of the love, or they don't get all the spotlight all the time. Same thing goes for the offensive lines. You know what I mean? Like, you could name anyone on Princeton's offensive line. You could name anyone from Morrison's line. The teams that just continue to run the ball really, really well. The big fellas up front, the Hogs up front, need more spotlight on them, and we'll try and get a better job of doing that. So, shout out to all the linemen out there.
There you go. Hey, send us the names of those starting linemen for some of these teams that that you appreciate if you're a fan of their line. Send it out to us. We'll get a shout out to them. We'll get them on the air here.
Right.
So, Sherrard has had some impact players. Holland Anderson, 939 yards passing so far. Mitch, 13 touchdowns. His favorite connection, Carter Brown, 353 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns. That also goes along with 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. So he has certainly looked impressive. They've looked, Sherrard's looked good. They're fighting for those wins, but we've talked about the offense they can put up. How about Peyton Thompson from Monmouth Roseville? He's another guy that's put up some good numbers for them, really helping them along the way. So certainly some names there. Did we talk about Rock Ridge yet?
No, I don't think so.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just any of those guys, right? Kohlenschweigen, Alexander Talis. You got Deem, you got Fryermuth, you got Wheatley. Like you mentioned, Ryan Lower. So again, a committee type of team that can score from so many different ways. So when we get down to the end of the year, I think that might give some clarity. But, for now, they're all just playing so well on that Rockets team.
Yep. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to follow here. This compared to the Western Big Six, this race for potential player of the year, and we'll name one at the end of the season on both sides of the conference. Both divisions will get one player of the year. But I think this is a little more wide open than maybe some other conferences.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So certainly we've got more teams to choose from than the Western Big Six. But, when you're talking a player like Braden Little, maybe, spoiler, has the upper hand going into the second half of the season here. But I couldn't pick one from any school in the track that might have the upper hand going into the final 4 weeks.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's take a quick break. Thanks some sponsors, and we'll jump into the Lincoln Land Conference. Brink Sportswear offers totally custom made-to-order football uniforms that allow coaches and athletic directors to take control of their brands. The uniforms are available in sublimated and tackle twill. They offer free digital mock-ups, free shipping on team orders, and free physical samples before you buy, so you know exactly how you're spending your program's money. Uniform sets start at $99 for sublimated and $120 for tackle twill. You can find them on Twitter or go to brinksportswear.com. View from the West podcast is also sponsored by the Cupcake Cartel, gourmet cupcakes that are made to order. Over 40 flavors, including wedding cake, lemon blueberry, strawberry milkshake, snickerdoodle, and Oreo. Perfect for weddings, birthdays, showers, fundraisers, or any event. You can find the Cupcake Cartel on Facebook. We thank them for their support. Welcome back to View from the West podcast. Now, Mitch, we just heard from our sponsor, Brink Sportswear, about what they can do for you, outfitting your uniforms. We've talked about that all year, But did you see recently they put out on Twitter, they can get you customizable wrestling belts, championship belts.
Hey, we like that.
That's exciting. That's cool stuff. I saw it. I need to retweet it because it looked awesome. Like, man, I want a championship belt, a View from the West championship belt.
Heck yeah, maybe a promotion down the line.
Yeah, I was gonna say we got to figure out a way to, like, how can we give one of those out? That would be cool.
Yeah, and speaking of them, we'll get to Farmington in a minute. I don't know if they were new this year or just an alternative if they weren't before, but Farmington is outfitted by Brick Sportswear, and they had all yellow this week, which was a nice look.
Yeah, it did look really good. I caught that. I saw the uniforms they were wearing, and then I saw that he had retweeted, Brink Sportswear had retweeted it. And yeah, glad to see that they were Brink uniforms because they look sharp, cool look. And the helmets are amazing. The helmets Farmington has are great. So, yep. All right. Well, like I said, we thank our sponsors. If you'd like to support us here at View from the West podcast, if you like what you hear, you want to help us out, there's an easy way you can do that. You can head to PayPal. Search View from West Pod or View from the West. You can go directly to paypal.me/viewfromwestpod. We would love any way you can support us here. This is a passion project for us, but there are some costs that come along with it. Mitch, we'd love to upgrade some equipment. If we had, a little bit of spare change to upgrade some things, we would certainly do it. So any way you can help support us, any way you can spread the word about our podcast. I think our listenership, I know our listenership is growing when I check the numbers every week, which is exciting, which is really great. So we appreciate any way that anybody can spread the word. But if you want to help us out monetarily, you can head over to PayPal.
And look, our Twitter followership grows every single week. So our reach is getting better and better. So if anyone out there is listening, is trying to maybe get your company out there, again, we're growing, and we can reach quite a few people in the area. So yeah, we would love to hear from you if you want to be involved.
Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's jump into the Lincoln Land Conference Week 5. The game I was at, Mitch, a statement win, huge win for Knoxville. They get the win 44-0 over Mercer County. Knoxville was up 16-0 at the half. I was actually on my way from Oneida, from Rova Williams Field. I was on my way to Knoxville listening to the broadcast on WRMJ. The Golden Eagles did seem to grab a little bit of momentum. They got a couple stops at the end of the first half to hold it to a 16-0 game. But I knew that Knoxville was going to be getting the ball to start the second half. And Mercer County had them pinned deep. They had them at their own 10-yard line. They got them to a third down. It seemed like it was one of those, can you get this stop, force them to punt, get the ball on offense here in the second half, see what you can do. But man, Blue Bullets call a timeout. And within a few seconds, literally the whole game changes. Nolan McClay busts off a 90-yard run, and the route was on from there. Ends up being 38-0 at the end of the third quarter. You could tell that, Knoxville grabbed all the momentum in this one, and they did not look back. Read through some of the totals here, Mitch, that we got from, again, Ty Taylor sent us some, stats from the end of this one.
Yeah, real quick, was that 90-yard rush, was that one of your highlights that you...
That was my first highlight.
That was great camera work there by you on that.
Well, hey, I give credit to Nolan McClay, man. He busted off right through the middle, and he was sprinting down the field. I was right there to be all over it. So
yeah, well, that 90 was part of 404 that Knoxville put up on the evening. I don't believe, according to our notes, that they attempted to pass. So again,
they did not.
We like that. Maybe that's what a championship belt should go to. The team who throws the least amount of passes in a season. That's what I can get behind.
I did tell one of the coaches on the sidelines as I was leaving that Mitch is going to love these highlights because he never wants to see any passing. So
yeah, Knoxville, Lena Winslow, BB this week. Yeah, we love it when you're just running the ball all night. So 404 yards rushing. They also held Mercer County to 103. That 404 led by, as you mentioned, Nolan McClay, 13 carries for 213 yards and 3 tutties. Mitchell Parrish, who has a good stat line just about every week, a good compliment to McClay and that Blue Bolt offense, 12 rushes for 89 yards and 2 scores. So a great win for Knoxville for them to remain undefeated. they've got some big games coming up here, but they keep playing blue bullet football the way that we've known them to play like the past couple of years.
Mitch, I got to say, just, being out there, talking to some people, hearing some things, I think that, this Knoxville group, they kind of play with a chip on their shoulder a little bit. Yeah. I think that, sometimes, and I understand because, and I'll go into a deep story here. I'm growing up in Ottawa, Illinois, that we were, getting TV stations out of Chicago. We were getting TV stations out of Peoria, but we were not close enough to either one to ever get any TV coverage. We weren't lucky enough to grow up in, Morrison, where Dan Pearson is there every week covering for the Highlight Zone. And, the way that, when you grew up being used to being on TV, that was not the case. So I think looking at this Knoxville program, they're, they're far out as far as the Quad Cities coverage, but they're also kind of on the fringe of Peoria's coverage. So they're just kind of in that no man's land. Now we hear a View from the West. We love Knoxville. We're talking Knoxville. We're getting out there.
Right.
And
we love no man's land.
and Channel 8 and Channel 6 and, in the local Quad Cities media, they do a good job of getting out there. But I think that, this team, as getting back to my initial point, they carry a little chip on their shoulder, knowing that, they don't always get the, the huge spotlight. So we're trying to give them that spotlight, but they're certainly earning it here. This was a statement win for them, and they looked really good. I mean, I was really impressed with what I saw here. So we'll see what they got, one big test way down the way. They got to take care of business in the meantime, but we'll get into that in a second here. But great win here in week 5. Other results from the LLC. Illini West gets the 46-14 win over LVC. Farmington gets the 30-26 win over Elmwood Brimfield. This game was entertaining. This one was a lot of fun. Elmwood Brimfield led this one going into the 4th quarter. Farmington trying to protect their perfect season so far. They're down 4 points with 6:36 left in the game. They're facing a 4th and 3 on their own 16-yard line, and they go for it. They call a play called Angels Extra. And this play, the Angels Extra, saves their undefeated season. Quarterback Lane Wheelwright throws a ball, floats it down into the hands of Jack Gronwald for an 84-yard go-ahead touchdown. Dave Emnian from the Peoria Journal-Star had a great write-up, had a great article about this. The quote I loved he had from head coach Toby Vallis. I asked our players what they wanted to do. They were adamant that we go for it. That's still, man, that's a crazy call to me. Anyway, back to the quote. So we called Angels Extra, and the ball came down from the heavens.
There you go.
Man, amazing quote. What a game. Thrilling win for Farmington. They continue their great season here.
Yeah, and Coach Vallis sent us a message after the game that I don't remember what it is at the moment, but they barely had the ball in this game. So they really made the most out of their possessions and had to use them all to pull out this win. We've been impressed with Lane Wheelwright all season. This was another great game for him. Like you mentioned, Jack Gronwald had a big game on the ground and receiving through the air. Carter Lambin blocked yet another punt. So, he's got 3 the last 2 weeks. And again, Farmington's undefeated. So playing and really, really well. All roads leading to week 9, potentially against Knoxville, where Farmington and Knoxville could be undefeated going into that. So that would really be something. So not to look too far ahead, because they both got some tough games coming up. Farmington still has to go to and on Wethersfield. But yeah, this was a really, really good win for them, a gutsy win for the Farmers.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about how it seems crazy that they went for it on a 4th and 3 at their own 16-yard line with 6:36 left in the game. But when you talk about if Elmwood Brimfield was controlling the clock as well as they were, maybe that kind of forces your hand where you don't want to let them grind this game away, and potentially you're not going to get the ball back. Or if you do, it's, time's running out. So man, I give him credit. It's a gutsy call. The Angels extra. The play worked. Got the job done. For Elmwood Brimfield, a couple standout performances. Bo Windish and Lane Durst led the way. They combined for 198 yards and a touchdown on 45 carries. Windish had 104 and Durst had 94 yards, and he had the touchdown. Also, one more thing we have to point out from Elmwood Brimfield, their head coach, Todd Hollis. I don't know if he does it every week or if this was something special. How about the shirt and tie on the sidelines, Mitch?
Yep, swaggy Todd. We like that. Don't see it too often anymore.
No, I can't remember when I've ever saw it. So it's very cool. Yeah. Actually, of all things, I was scrolling through Twitter or looking at different articles when I saw it. And I believe it was a photo that came from the Peoria Journal-Star. And I kind of laughed and I showed my wife. And my wife was super impressed. She loved it. So maybe it's because I never wear a shirt and tie. So it's, doesn't happen very often. So, So credit to Todd Hollis. It's that swag on the sidelines. It looks great.
It's hot out there, so you're wearing a suit and tie on the sidelines. Yeah. Or not a suit and tie, but a shirt and tie on the sideline.
Yeah. All right. Some more results. Stark County gets the 20-8 win over West Hancock. Rebels forced 5 turnovers in this one, including 4 picks and 2 pick sixes. So making a defensive statement here are the Rebels.
Yeah, I think Matthew Bowser had one of them. They continue to play really, really well, shutting down a West Hancock offense who is known to throw the ball around. Gavin Grotehouse puts up big numbers every week. So, the Rebels, I think, have a claim for the best defense in the area. I don't have the stats in front of me to back that up. They've just been seemingly playing that way, and they always seem to have quite a few turnovers every single week. We talked about it a little bit earlier. This week, undefeated Stark County against undefeated Robo Williamsfield. Who's going to break first between two really good teams that play well on both sides of the ball? Really, really looking forward to this matchup.
Yeah, we'll get into that one in a second here. A few more results to read through. Breeze Mater Dei gets the 38-18 win over Macomb. Tough loss there for the Bombers. But Mitch, what I noticed, I was covering 2 LLC games, obviously started at Robo Williamsfield and then made my way to Knoxville on Friday night, and seeing all the teams wearing the LC 59 decal to honor Landon Cromer, the Macomb student who passed away in a tragic car accident a couple weeks ago. Really cool sign of support from across the conference. I just, you love to see that sort of thing. So, again, continue to have thoughts and prayers for that Macomb community, but nice to see that support from around, from teams, from teams they're competing against, on a weekly basis. So,
yeah, exactly.
Anawan Weathersfield gets the big win, shutout win, 42-0 over A-Town. Zev Rashid, 140 yards and a couple touchdowns. Rovo Williamsfield, 35-18 over South Fulton. Riley Danner, 2 touchdown passes. Lewis Sams, of 50 yards receiving and a touchdown. Brian Bertelshofer, 143 yards rushing and a touchdown. Brown had 149 yards rushing, 16 yards receiving, 3 total touchdowns. I should have texted Coach Grant Goldstrand to ask what Brown's first name was, because I saw it on their social media, but it didn't have a first name. And now I feel bad that I had everybody else's first name and not his. So
sorry, Mr. Brown.
Yes, Mr. Brown, you had a great game, 3 total touchdowns. We'll get your name next week. So the offensive production, though, from Rovo Williamsfield, impressive. 103 yards passing, 310 yards rushing, 413 yards total. So when you're talking about that Stark County defense, I think this is a potential test for them. Obviously, Rovo Williamsfield's 5-0, but the test comes in the fact that they're pretty multidimensional. They can pass, they can run, they can do a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think if you looked at that 413, you could flip how they did that, on any week, because that's how versatile the Rovo Williamsfield offense is. Danner could throw for 310 one week and they could only rush for 100 yards. So, yeah, this is a dynamic offense and a really, really good defense. So I think 2 teams who have similar qualities and what could end up being the deciding game in the LLC on this side, boy, it's going to be, if I'm not watching Kewanee and Princeton, this is definitely going to be where I'm watching, because there's a lot on the line here on Friday night.
Yeah, I'm so torn, Mitch. We'll talk about it at the end of the episode, but where am I going this week? I don't know yet, but this is a game I can't find myself not going to this one. But man, yeah, we'll see where we end up. A couple more scores. Rushville Industry 26, Havana 20, and Princeville gets the win. Pretty important win for them, I think, looking down the way of the rest of their season. They get the 36-20 win over Monmouth United. So we just talked about it. Roval Williams Field and Stark County. That's the big matchup in the small school side of things. You also have A-Town at United, South Fulton going up against Princeville, Havana at A&W, Rushville Industry at Hayworth. So let's start on this small school side of things, Mitch. Like we said, undefeated Stark County, undefeated Roval Williams Field, Anawan Weathersfield right behind them, sitting at 4-1. You have Princeville now with 3 wins. They're sitting at 3-2 overall. And then a few other teams, South Fulton, Rushville Industry, and United, all sitting at 2-3 in overall in their season. So Roval Williams Field, Stark County, we've talked about Stark County's defense and the job they did a few weeks ago against Zeb Rashid, really controlling him in that game against Anawan Weathersfield. They come away with the 1-point win. That's the type of effort you're going to need, again, to slow down this Roval Williams Field squad.
Yeah, they'll certainly have to keep Riley Danner in check. But on the flip side, how do you stop Luke Reworks? It's been tough for a lot of teams all season. So yeah, you can't say enough about how similar both of these teams are. I don't know who won last season, but I can be pretty sure it didn't have this much on the line. So, I would imagine everyone's pretty fired up this week in both camps heading into Friday night.
Well, I'm going to look it up because you put me on the spot here. I'll look it up. Last year, let's see. Last year it was Roval. I thought so. It was Roval Williams Field 34-13. That one was at Stark County.
Okay.
Yep. So,
okay.
And both teams, if you remember, ended up sitting at 5-4, and they played each other in the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
And that was Roval Williams Field again coming away with the 28-14 win. So Stark County looking for a little revenge here. They got to go on the road if they're going to get it, but this should be a great matchup. This, like I said, it's one it's on the top of my list. I may be there. I got to decide, but maybe there.
Looking at another game like for Monmouth United, they're sitting at 2-3. They end the season with Stark County. So I would think that for United, they have to win these next 3 games. I think that they can. They play A-Town, South Fulton, and Havana. Two of those teams don't have any wins. So it might come down to that South Fulton game in week 7 to determine if they get 5 wins or not. So I think for United, they have to essentially win out, but they really only have to win the next 3 games. But lose one of those, and I don't think they can get in.
We also have Princeville taking on South Fulton. This game could have a lot of playoff implications. Last week, you said the winner of Princeville and United was in. But when you look at Princeville's schedule remaining, they're at 3 wins, so they helped themselves out with the win over United. But they got a tough road left. You still got, after South Fulton this week, you still got Stark County. You have Rushville Industry. In week 9, you have Anawan Weathersfield. So there's still a couple tough matchups in there. But basically, it comes down to you got to get the job done against the teams that are 2-3.
Right. So, yeah, I don't see how they can be better than 5-4. But, yeah, that win against United really propels them to get into that sort of position. So, yeah, for Princeville and United, I think there's a chance to get them both into that really tough 1A North playoff.
Yep. For Anawan Weathersfield, they're going up against Havana this week. So a winless Havana team this week. Down the road, they still have Farmington, Roval Williamsfield, and Princeville. So pretty tough. Yeah, once they get past this week, they still have a pretty tough slate left. But that being said, I think this Roval Williams or this Anawan Wethersfield team still has a lot they could prove. You know, they could. There's a couple games in there that would be some marquee wins on their schedule if they can get it. You know, and they're certainly hungry for that. You know, falling a point short against Stark County in week 2, I think they're certainly hungry to make some noise and throw their name into the potential, you know, fight for a tie in the conference or, you know, come away with the conference title. So still a lot to be proven there. It's a tough slate, but I think they have a lot left to prove. They're playing motivated football. Well, should we look at the big side of things here? We have in week 6, Mercer County on the road at Elmwood Brimfield, Illini West at Knoxville, Farmington at Macomb, West Hancock at LVC. So Mercer County and Elmwood Brimfield, both coming off losses, looking for a big win here. And when you look, you know, overall at the standings, Mercer County certainly needs a win. They're sitting at 3-2. And Elmwood Brimfield, let's see, what's their record now? They are 1-4. Are they 1-4?
Yes, 1-4. Yep.
So both teams definitely hungry for a win in that one. You also, you know, Knoxville looking to continue their role. They're at home again against Illini West. Can Farmington keep rolling? They got to go on the road to Macomb. And then can West Hancock get their first win of the year?
Yeah, I was going to throw some love on West Hancock against the Lewiston Co-op. Tough seasons for both teams. Lewiston's they didn't win last year either. So, you know, good for one of these teams to get a win on Friday night. I like the way Illini West has been playing. They're 3-2 now. Good win on Friday and going on the road to Knoxville. So I think it'll be a bit of a test for Knoxville. But the way that Knoxville's been playing, they've just been so hard to stop. I think that Farmington at Macomb game in the large school division is really where Macomb could play spoiler. They were undefeated in the regular season last year, which would mean that they beat Farmington if they played. Can they do it again to Farmington and play spoiler at home? So yeah, there's good matchups all throughout the LLC this week.
Yeah, and especially
Royal Williamsfield, Stark County.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, this has been a fun division to follow. You know, the big side has been fun to follow. The whole conference in general, though, I think is just it's been a good conference. It's competitive. It's a lot of teams that are, you know, gonna play some really good football games down the stretch. We've already seen a few of them, and we're gonna see a few more. Let's get into our potential player of the year candidates here. Who's our mid-season standouts that we think could be on the way to a player of the year status?
Well, let's start at the top with the Farmers, with Farmington. Been really impressed with Lane Wheelwright this year. 763 yards passing with 11 scores. He's also got 545 yards rushing with 8 scores. So, you know, you're talking 1,300 all-purpose yards and close to 20 touchdowns. So, big reason why that they are 5-0. A lot of players on that Farmington team are playing really well. Just really been impressed with Lane. For Knoxville, Nolan McClay, we talk about him every single week. He's almost at 1,000 yards rushing this year. So he's got 12 touchdowns. I'm trying to think back. Does Jarius Rice have 1,000 yards, or is Nolan maybe our leading rusher in the area? Maybe.
Yeah, he might be of all the schools that we're talking about.
No, right. See, with Rice playing in a pass happy offense, he's only at 653. I say only.
Yeah.
But so I do believe that Nolan McClay would be our leading rusher in the area. So
yeah,
a good testament again to the big fellas up front there in Knoxville, and a complimentary offense that's been playing really, really well.
Yeah, I saw it firsthand, and I was impressed with McClay. But you're right, he's got some guys up front creating some holes for him, and he certainly makes the most of those gaps. And he's getting free, and he's not getting caught. So he's been impressive. But the big boys up front are giving him some space for sure.
Yeah, and you know, talking about McClay as being the top rusher, looking back here on the large school side, looking back even at winless West Hancock, Gavin Grothaus has 1,200 yards throwing, which is the leading passer in the LLC. So despite the record, been really impressed with him all season. I believe he's got 10 touchdowns. So that Titan attack has been fun to watch. So again, despite the record, Gavin Grothaus has really been playing well.
And another name to toss out there on the LLC large side of things, this Macomb offense has looked pretty good this year, and they're led by Braden Holthouse.
We've got a Grothaus and a Holthouse?
Well, that's correct. They went up against each other on that Saturday afternoon game, which ended up being pushed to Monday, and saw some of the highlights from that one. And and with him leading the way, he was a wide receiver converted into quarterback this year. But yes, Braden Holthouse looked pretty good for the Bombers. So that's another name to watch out for.
Like a Game of Thrones battle in here in the LLC. Isn't that the show that had the house of something and the house of, isn't that what their cliques were called? I didn't watch it.
I'll be honest, the reference is over my head, but somebody's going to get it. So.
I think they called the families the house of some, I don't know. Doesn't matter.
All right. Yeah, well done. That's good. All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the small school side of things here. Riley Danner.
Yep.
For Roval Williamsfield, 834 yards passing, 10 touchdowns.
The most notable one I did not mention last season and got barked at by the Roval Williamsfield fan base. So, yes, Riley Danner is certainly on the list this year.
I do need to point out, Mitch, that when I walked into Roval Williamsfield last week, I had multiple people come up and, say that they love the podcast and thank you so much. They did not say that they loved you. They just said that they like.
No, they don't. They're going to hold that against me forever.
No, here's it. I'll vouch for you. To all the Roval Williamsfield fans, Mitch is a good guy, and here we go.
The Roval fans like me because I say that I credit them all the time.
It's true.
The Williamsfield families that don't want any part of me.
That's true. Someday you need to make a special trip to Williamsfield and stop by the local. Maybe they have a Casey's or the local diner and meet the people. Like a presidential type of political campaign visit.
Right. Just trying to up my image. I really got to do something.
That's right. So, Mitch, you were the one crunching the numbers today and you got Riley Danner's name in there. So there you go. Yeah. He definitely deserves it. 834 yards, like we mentioned, 10 touchdowns.
There's a lot of names on this Cougar team that are playing really well, have really been a big reason why this team is 5-0, but Riley Danner makes that offense run. And yeah, you're nearing 1,000 yards and over 10 touchdowns. So this has been really fun to watch. And again, with these 4 weeks left and some big matchups for Roval Williamsfield coming up, he's going to be a big reason why that they could potentially go into the playoffs unbeaten.
Yep. A couple other names that stand out to me, I think. You look at Stark County's Luke Rewerts, quarterback for the Rebels, 266 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, 439 yards passing, 5 more touchdowns. He's really kind of the driving force behind that offense. They have a lot of guys that contribute, but he's the one making plays at the quarterback position and done really well to lead them to 5-0 so far. You also have Zeb Rashid. That's a name that we knew coming into the year, obviously was going to make an impact. And week in and week out, Mitch, we're calling out his stats. And the thing that really stands out to me is when you talk to coaches around the conference, Zeb Rashid is the name that, they're most worried about when it comes to game planning, because he's just such a dynamic back, such a weapon for this Anawan Wethersfield team. Those are kind of the names that stand out to me on that side of the conference.
Yeah. 3 teams that 2 of which are undefeated and the other one's 4-1. And you still got a couple of those teams yet to play each other. So a lot of, as we mentioned, a lot of players from each of these 3 teams we could have mentioned. These 3 just kind of stand maybe a little bit above the rest, but a lot of talent here in the small side of the LLC.
Let's take one more quick break to thank some sponsors. We'll jump into Northwest Upstate Illini and 8-Man football.
The Quad City's first and only fantasy football show, For Fantasy's Sake, has you all covered when it comes to all of your fantasy football needs. The guys come to you live every Sunday morning during the football season from 10 to 11:30. They've got the best analysis, rankings, DFS, and gambling advice between the Rock and Mississippi Rivers. So tune into For Fantasy's Sake every Sunday during the football season from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
Welcome back to View from the West podcast. Let's jump into the Northwest Upstate Illini. Some results from week 5. Fulton gets the win over Dakota, 38-6. Big win there for the Steamers. Forreston gets the shutout victory, 46-0 over West Carroll. Mitch, looking through the numbers on this one, the Cardinals had 9 different guys run the ball and 6 different guys scoring a rushing touchdown. That's the kind of offense you like.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like a Forreston game if I've ever heard one.
It's exactly right. So congratulations to the Forreston Cardinals. They once again are having a fantastic season. One thing I do want to point out, saw a really cool story out of Rockford. WIFR, the TV station there out of Rockford, did a feature on Lucas Nelson from Forreston. He's one of their student athletes, football players that only has one hand. But man, he does not let that slow him down, does not let that stop him from competing. Really cool story. He was a really well-spoken young man, and just really cool to see him out there, motivating to see him, how hard he's working, and, not letting anything slow him down. So if anyone wants to, see that, I encourage you to go out and check that out. It was, I believe NUIC football retweeted it last week, and it was WIFR out of Rockford. So
yeah, great story. Shout out to Lucas. Good job.
Yep. A couple more scores here. Dupec gets the 62-14 win over Galena, so their great season continues. Stockton gets the 35-8 win over Eastland Pearl City. Lena Winslow gets the non-conference win, 48-0 over St. Teresa. Lena Winslow rushes for 351 yards on the day, led by Alex Schlichting, who finished with 126 yards on 4 carries and a touchdown. So a name that we're not quite as familiar with, but great job for Alec there. Now, the name we are a little more familiar with, Gage Dunker, has 94 yards on 14 attempts with a touchdown. Also, Coburn Lynch rushes for 78 and 2 scores. Defensively, Lynch had an interception that went for a pick 6, and Jalen Rakoska had 2 interceptions on the day. So another well-balanced, well-rounded effort here for the Panthers.
Yeah, I'd have to go back, and certainly we have heard about St. Teresa's kind of drop off this year, but I would be hard pressed to see a game featuring 2 defending state champions that has been so lopsided that this one was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it probably happens all that often. You might see it in 7 and 8A with those Chicago schools. Just trying to think off the top of my head. I don't know how often you would see 2 defending state champs play in the regular season, but I would imagine that a 48-point win is probably one of the largest, if not the largest, results. So, great win for Lee Wynn. Certainly just racking up the yards on the ground and doing what they do. But that is going to lead us into maybe the deciding game in the NUIC here in week 6.
Yeah, well, let's jump right into it here. Actually, I saw a funny tweet from a friend of the podcast, Greg Pruis, who tweeted something about it's about time that Forreston, Lee Wynn, and Dupec have to play each other. And I kind of agree with him. Let's get to the meat of this schedule here in the NUIC, and we're getting to it here. Forreston is sitting at 5-0. Dupec sitting at 5-0. Lena Winslow also sitting at 5-0, and they all still have to play each other. It starts this week with Lena Winslow going on the road to Dupec. Man, if it wasn't such a haul from where I'm at, I would love to go cover that one. That would be that's the game I'd like to go to, but it's a little bit of a stretch for me to get there on a Friday night. But other games around the NUIC in week 6, Dakota going up against West Carroll, Forreston at Stockton, Fulton goes up against Galena, and Eastland Pearl City goes on the road to Aurora Christian. So, I think a couple interesting, Forreston at Stockton and Fulton going up against Galena are interesting to see if, can Galena pull off what I would kind of call an upset if they could beat Fulton. And then you also have the same thing with Stockton. They're at home, but that would be an upset if they were to knock off Forreston. I think those two are interesting from that aspect. But the big one is Lena Winslow and Dupec. These teams, look to be the real deal. They've been meeting the last few years, and it's become quite a rivalry. Should be another great one.
Yeah, Glean and Stockton, just going back to your first point, two teams fighting for a playoff spot. So their 4 weeks, both for them, are pretty crucial. But yeah, we can't talk enough about what this game is going to be like on Friday for Lee Win going on the road. Been super impressed with Dupek this year. I believe, I guess I do have it pulled up, that they are not quite. Lee Win holds the edge a little bit in points scored this year. They have scored 22 more points than Dupek, despite the 62 performance from Dupek this past week. But the Dupek defense has only allowed 30 points through 5 games. Now, Lee Win's only allowed 36, so it's not to say that their defense isn't also really, really good, but it just goes to show that these are two really, really, really fun teams to watch. A little bit of a different dynamic, right? Lee Win doesn't pass at all. Dupek likes to pass. So it'll come down to which defense can really stop the other's force. Can Dupek slow down the Dunkers, the Lynches, the Schlichtings?
Yeah.
And for Lee Win, can they slow down Cooper Hoffman, right, who's been so good all year? So I'm really, really looking forward to this game. Again, I've talked about watching Kewanee Princeton and Robert Williamsfield in Stark County, but this is a third game that I hope has a stream going. I'm sure that they will, because I want to have eyes on this one.
Yeah, I hope you do, because I want to know how this one plays out, because I think obviously it goes a long way in determining who wins this conference. And you start looking down the way, Forreston gets into the mix here. They have Dupek in week 8 and Lena Winslow in week 9. Yeah. So they'll get into the mix and they'll have their say as well. But for right now, in week 6, this one is the marquee matchup for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's some of the usual suspects, some of the names you just called out, but our mid-season player of the year candidates, who could be the names we're talking about at the end of the season here?
Let's see. I just two guys we just mentioned for Lee Win, Gage Dunker. I don't think he's probably played a full game yet, just the way that their results have been. But again, these next 4 weeks, I think that changes. But so far, 678 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns. On the other side of the ball, at least this week, Dupek, their quarterback, Cooper Hoffman, 882 yards passing for 15 touchdowns. He's also got 377 yards rushing with 8 touchdowns. So you're talking about 23 touchdowns from Hoffman this year. Really, really fun to watch. So these two players going up against one another this week should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. A couple other names from around the NUIC. How about Owen Mulder from Forreston? 8 touchdowns. He has 5 2-point extra point conversions and then 26 tackles. So, a little bit of everything here. He's getting the job done all over the field. Fulton's Dom Kramer has looked really good. 703 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, also 136 yards rushing and a touchdown. So, yeah, I think those are, some of the candidates that we'll be talking about throughout the rest of the season for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've really been impressed with Don Kramer with Fulton. Junior, first year. I don't know if it's first year playing quarterback, but certainly first year playing a starter for the varsity on Fulton. So he's leading that offense. He's making them play better and better every single week. I do think Fulton will get into the playoffs, and it'll be in big thanks to guys like Don Kramer, to AJ Boardman, to Bailey Damehoff. So Fulton has a lot of players that could be on this list. Forreston has a lot of players that could be on this list. Dupek, Lee Win. So we mentioned these 4 guys, but all these teams are really, really good and have guys who contribute and are big reasons why they sit with records that they have.
Yep. Well, let's get into the 8-man division here. Let's talk some results from week 5. Amboy, Lamoille, Ohio gets the win. We got to give them all credit there. Amboy, Lamoille, Ohio gets the win 48-42 over Ridgewood. Another great win for Amboy here for the Clippers. But man, Ridgewood, they've had a tough stretch here. They lost to Polo by 4, and then they were at home again and lost to Amboy by 6. So this Ridgewood team, they're knocking on the door They're, they're on the verge of really like busting through, just coming up a little bit short against really good competition here.
Yeah, they're still going to be a team to watch though in the playoffs. There's no question about that. So you're going to see some of these matchups again, I think, in the playoffs, and that's what makes 8-man so exciting. So Ridgeview, despite coming up a little short here in these past couple games, really one of the odds-on favorites, I suppose, to compete for that title. Now, I don't want to say that they're odds-on favorites to win, but they're in the conversation as going to be a player.
Yeah, I think they'll certainly be a player. They've given both of these teams a good game. They're right there, like I said. So some other results: West Central gets the win 56-6 over Galva. Congratulations to West Central. They get their first win on the season. Cody Wade led the way with 215 yards on 7 carries, 3 touchdowns. Isaiah Stephen had 159 yards and 3 touchdowns. So congratulations to the Heat. They'd been struggling to start the season, but they come away with the win here, and hopefully looking to grab a couple more down the rest of the way. This next week, that'll be a challenge against Bushnell Prairie City. We'll get to those matchups in a minute, but congrats to the Heat on that one. Polo gets the win 42-6 over River Ridge. Rockford Christian Life gets the 28-22 win over Ashton Franklin Center. Orangeville gets the big win 53-36 over Alden Hebron. Milledgeville 74-34 over Hiawatha. South Fork 30-0 over West Prairie. Martinsville 52-14 over Pawnee. So we talked a lot about these matchups, reacted to them on the Instant Reacts podcast. You can go check those out, but Milledgeville continues to look good. Orangeville gets the big win there. That was a really important win for them. And obviously Polo comes away with the big win. They continue to look good as well. So teams to follow for sure. Who are some of the names, Mitch, on these teams that are going to be potential player of the year candidates in the 8-man ranks?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with Connor Nye. We talk about him every single week. He's got 760 yards passing, 15 touchdowns. I think his completion percentage is like 73% or something like that. He also dual threat 320 yards rushing with 9 touchdowns. So you're talking 24 touchdowns for Connor Nye this season, and has those missiles playing really, really well.
Yeah, Connor Nye impressed me when I saw him in person. I've seen him, in the last couple years, but he really impressed me the other night when I saw him. Looks every bit the part. He'll continue to lead the way for them. But another quarterback that's really kind of burst onto the scene here, we saw him a little bit last year, Eddie Jones for Amboy, but he's really kind of stepped up and played well for a team that has had a lot of high expectations, and he's helping live up to it.
Yeah, Amboy was really good last year with Lindermeyer. And I think Eddie Jones stepped in when he got hurt, but this year he's got more touchdowns than he does incompletions, Greg. He's 16 to 22 for 440 yards and 8 touchdowns. So not only more touchdowns than incompletions, but half of his completions are touchdowns. So big reason why Amboy's playing really, really well.
Yep. Awesome. Read through Brock Soltau's numbers for me here.
Yeah.
We knew this would be a name that we'd talk about a lot this year, but man, his stat sheet is impressive.
Yeah, he's everywhere. Don't have his defensive stats, but I would love to get those too. But on the offensive side of the ball, 676 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns, 283 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. He's also thrown for 4 touchdowns. So
that's crazy.
Anytime you can, score a touchdown on the ground, through the air, and the receiving is pretty good. When you do it that many times, it's a pretty good indicator of a good ball player. So yeah, Brock Soltau having a really, really great year for Polo.
Yeah. Another great athlete for Polo, Noah Dewey having a great year at wide receiver. He's a name to watch for. His name is big, high up in the stat sheet that NUIC football sends out every week. Another couple names for Ridgewood, a team that we've talked about here, Roy Sandberg and Riley Couture. Those are names we talked about last year, and they're continuing to produce. And, I think there's some big wins potentially, come playoff time for this Ridgewood team. They're close, and they're, right there. We've talked about it a lot, but those are a couple names leading the way for them. So Mitch, the only thing left to decide here, where am I going on Friday night?
Okay. So let's take let's take two that we talked about, and I don't know if we'll do a swing because maybe you have to commit to one of these games since they're both pretty important.
Okay.
You got Kewanee going to Princeton, or you've got Stark County going to Rovo Williams Field.
Yep.
I think the biggest question here, Greg, is where is the better pork chop?
Oh, that is a really tough question.
Not to put you on the spot here, but
we talked about
that's one of the deciding factors.
We talked up the Rova Williams Field pork chop last week. The FFA from Rova did a fantastic job with that. So, I was really happy with that. But Princeton does not mess around either when it comes to a pork chop. But how about this one? You got Amboy going on the road to Milledgeville. That's a huge matchup in 8-man.
Wow. Yeah, we've got marquee matchups in 4 of the 5 conferences we cover. So where'd you say that? That's at Amboy or at Milledgeville?
It's at Milledgeville.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure. What are we looking back? Is Sterling at home? Oh, yeah. Newman's at home.
Yeah. So you could do that.
I could do that one. Yeah. But that's a game you hate to leave. If it's Amboy and Milledgeville, you hate to leave.
You'll get your highlights early, though. I mean, you won't need to be there that long because you'll get highlights pretty quick.
That's a fair point. That's that might be a good one to go to.
But it also could be like a 72 to 68 game where you don't want to miss. Yeah. All right. Well, I got some thinking to do this week, but you got options.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, Mitch, and you've already kind of went through what your Friday night's going to look like. You got Kewanee, Princeton, you get on a screen. You got how many screens can you do at the same time? Or you usually just flip them back and forth?
No, I usually just flip back and forth. Using the tablet and not having to go through the ads, that's been a pretty clutch setup.
That's key to find that out. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. What's helpful is if the computer is free and I can use that to get on Twitter, because otherwise I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
And trying to keep up with it sometimes is a lot, and trying to type on a phone, and copy and paste and this, that, and the other thing, where on the computer it's a heck of a lot easier. So, I don't have the setup like Seuss does.
No, that was a great one.
But, and this is another great thing about like Tiger Central Live, where I can have that game on the TV and then something else on a tablet.
That's perfect. So
yep. If games are on YouTube, and of course I could always get on NFHS on the TV, but it's a lot easier to operate that on the tablet. So
it is.
We'll see. We'll definitely have Kewanee and Princeton on the big screen, and then I'll try and be flipping between Dupac, Lee Wynn, Stark County, Rover Williams Field. If Amboy and Milledgeville have a stream going, I'll try and get eyes in the sky everywhere. But you'll be on the ground, and I know you'll make the right choice and where you're going to go.
That's big trust. I appreciate your trust in me to find to figure out where I'm going. I'll have to talk to Dazzo and see what works. But man, I'm excited. You can't really make a wrong choice, I don't feel like. So
now Knoxville's home. You could always get that back down to Knoxville. We know they like us down there. You never leave them out of the decision making.
That's true. Yeah. We're getting to the point where I've seen a lot of teams that I want to get eyes on. So it's, a matter of who do you want to, the matchups you want to see, but I want to make sure to get a little bit of everything, right? I want to try to find teams I haven't seen yet, but it gets tricky because you want it. Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate the trust you have in me. I'll make the right choice, and we'll go from there. So, well, thank you to everyone who follows along with Mitch on Twitter on Friday nights, and who follows along every week and listens to us. We really appreciate it. And, things are getting exciting. Things are ramping up, and we'll keep the coverage rolling here.
Yeah. And once again, thank you to everyone who does follow on Fridays, and we'll send along scores that I can't necessarily find. Some of those games that are out in the woods, you have to kind of put out an SOS, and there's someone out there who has it. So that's always incredibly helpful. So thank you to all those who join in on the fun on Friday nights, and certainly to the coaches as well who send in their stats. Because again, we want to try and cover your teams as best as we can, sometimes with limited resources. So you're always our first choice to get notes and stats from. So thank you again to all the coaches who've been helping us this year.
Yep. And, to all the head coaches out there, or any assistant coaches out there, if you want to loop us in on when you send out your emails to either local media or whoever you send out your stats to, we will take all the numbers you want to give us. So we'll, we'll do our best to kind of, compile what we can find, but any you want to send to us, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. Again, that's our email, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. We love getting the info to help us promote your program, help us promote your kids. So
DMs are always open, Greg.
That's true. Yeah, there you go.
Always open.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you to everyone who continues to support us, continues to listen. We'll be back next week with the Instant Reacts podcast, and we'll be right back here breaking it all down. We will see you next week. That'll do it for this week's episode of View from the West. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to go out to Apple Podcasts or Podbean and subscribe so you can follow along, and downloads will come automatically every week. You can follow along on Twitter @ViewFromWestPod. You can also email me if you're interested in being a sponsor, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.